It's all happening. We have begun the world of Worm. It's
hmm
episode whatever. Talking about chapter 16.y with Vic.
hmm Just as scheduled, originally scheduled on time, as always.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. So, I am getting that good old link out there for the people so that it's not just us talking. Um, everyone, and uh, yeah, boom, yeah, it's happening. Also, I do not think that Greg will be here this week.
Oh my goodness.
My word, real life.
Unacceptable.
Um, so we don't have a speed draw this time, but
Yes, this is some Dolly art that I worked on with I collaborated on with Dolly, and I think it's pretty fun. Look at them together. I wanted to make some changes still, but apparently you get like fucking credits now until you have to sign up. So I need to figure that out. But I am still pretty happy with how they turned out. They're looking pretty snazzy, like a real power couple.
yeah, I I know that it's probably just entirely through chance, but I like how weird and effed up his eyes are on where they like almost look right, but like on a
Yeah,
metaphorical level, it feels like how he's got like an eye put out and
he's got
everything.
yeah, he's got like a fucked up eye or whatever in the chapter.
Oh, Vale says, hi all, I can't stay on with you. Have to work super early tomorrow, about to crash. I'll catch the replay. We'll see you later, Vale. And,
Yeah, have a good night.
yeah. Um, but, I do like, this sort of works with how I see, Colin, you know.
Yeah.
Um, I guess Dragon's a bit surprising to me because I expected. Oh, Vale says, by the way, love the art. All in caps to make up for not being able to hang. It's good.
It's
Um,
Peter art. Don't you can't compliment it. Yeah, I mean I like this dragon is much too sexy.
well, she's also
she needs
very
to be
like,
shockingly average.
she's yeah. I was gonna say she's very severe for the way she's described as like
Yeah.
kind of in the middle because like you would think to yourself like someone who's very average would neither have very severe nor very bulbous features.
Yeah.
Vale
I like
yells in
my
all caps, I take it back, oops.
I do love my the original oh my gosh, what's her name? Jesus, dragon art that we
Mm-hmm.
did last time with AI. I think that looks like
Oh
more
yeah, it's
representative of her.
yeah. It that one's pretty excellent. I can actually probably open that.
Yeah, go for it.
Let's see here. Yeah, you got to see that my brother has a rotating background that includes cat girls.
Little cat girls.
You know,
It's not me, I swear, I swear.
I don't even have a computer, Victoria. You know this.
I know. Yeah, this one is so cool.
Yeah, yeah. It's it's good stuff. It's really feels like she can look in. I mean, to me, the different stuff in red and orange in this looks like her visions of different scenes of the
Yeah,
past.
it's like little monitor thingies.
Hmm. But back to the present, we will keep this on screen for most of the proceedings. Um, as a reminder to our friends who may still be catching the last few moments of this before they leave, um, We are going to have as audience participation to discuss Defiant, realizing that Dragon actually did have a trigger event and actually is a parahuman, not just a super
Ooh.
smart AI, as well as the much more important question: discuss why Defiant is better than Armsmaster, as posed by Vic.
It's true.
Mm-hmm. Um, for themes, we didn't write any themes, but I feel like there are themes.
There's
Um,
definitely themes. Being a man, I feel like is a good theme of this chapter.
I feel like he has a better character voice than he did. Like the previous chapter, in my opinion, is a very good chapter, but I don't think he
Mhm.
had a strong character voice. Whereas in this, I
Yeah,
think he does have a stronger character voice. He's like in
yeah,
line
absolutely.
with that like weirdness of his power, where he's got this like compulsion about utility, um,
Hmm.
where like that's the core of his tinker power. And I actually, I'm gonna write a note to talk about in the power section because that's far enough in that anyone who doesn't want to hear spoilers can just like hop out by then because it's 100 years into the recording. Um, so, do you have any thoughts on themes while I jot down this note before I forget?
Let's think. I mean, I don't know about themes. Like, it's definitely like, I don't know. I feel like this chapter is just like so Colin that there's like almost not a lot of themes because it's like so immersed. Like you said, like I feel like I do think it has like a really strong character voice. Like it's like so distinctive. I was thinking like I feel like this chapter is definitely in the same kind of voice that a lot of like older, more classic sci-fi and male-led fantasy is written in.
Yeah, he really
Like
does
when I was
seem like
reading
a
it.
classic protagonist from the kind of book that, like, as a tween to teen, other
Hmm.
people my age would be like, you should read this or listen to the book on whatever of this, like,
Hmm.
hardcore, cool thing.
Hmm.
He's
Yeah,
a hard
it's
boiled
like
man.
I think that if this was like earlier in the book, I would like be rolling my eyes more because I'd be like, okay, like it is like a lot of stuff that's like, oh, he's cool and dramatic and unfeeling and this and that. But like in context, that's not how it comes off. But out of context, it's definitely like that really just like classic sci-fi cool protagonist. Um, I don't know. I don't think I have any themes. Love and relationships.
Love and being more machine than man now. Um,
Yeah, yeah, that's true. There's like the themes of like what makes a person and everything, like the fact that, like you said, like Dragon had an actual trigger event, which was not something she was aware of before, which is basically like is basically I feel like confirms like she is a person, like regardless of what your opinion on AI is, because in the eyes of a sentient alien intelligence, like she fits right in.
and more importantly, in the eyes of the story.
And in the eyes of the story, yes, of course.
Yeah.
um and he's like the opposite, where he's moving more and more towards machine, and she's moving more and more towards human.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And they've more or less already passed each other before they go and meet up with the people in Triumph's chapter, which was a whole arc ago, actually, right? Or no,
Hmm.
that was a third of an arc ago because that happened at the end of 15. So
Hmm. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So which yeah, actually, now that I think of it, this is only the next day. So
But they are incredibly efficient, so
yeah. Um. I think we're probably ready to just start in on the chapter if you want to just take it away.
Sure. So, havoc has been wrought in a small town hospital. I bet you can guess by whom.
Hmm.
Defiant arrives on site to investigate, and he's getting the lowdown from their local sheriff. So the Slaughterhouse Nine had obviously ran through here in their, during their recruiting spree, and they took out all of the hospital patients and everyone else who was in the hospital, as well as like the nursery wing,
It wouldn't be
which is
them if
like
they didn't like
they
splorch a
they didn't
bunch of
like
newborns.
really push the limits of like how insane you can be.
I think part of it
Um,
is probably like from the perspective of the nine, they're like worried that people will get bored with them. It's like I've seen it all, Jack. Oh, you did another nursery. Oh, scary.
I mean, yeah. So there's like a bunch of people like like standing around crying and stuff. It seems like they're like the parents, so they like killed everybody, I assume, except for the parents of the babies. Um, at least that's how it comes off because like he's there was like everybody in the waiting room was killed, including like a deputy and stuff. So people who were
I
like
don't think
kind
they
of helping out.
specifically like left the parents alive per se.
Maybe they just weren't there.
Well, because in the way that like a normal like modern hospital works, the parents aren't like necessarily at the nursery. Like, do you know what I mean? Where there's like a separate room where they keep the
Yeah, but
babies
I thought that they had
because of
like
like
I just had kind of
weirdness.
assumed they killed everyone in the whole hospital, but they like had
Seemingly, they
every
like herded
yeah.
people through an
They like
area
herded everybody.
where
Yeah.
Hookwolf
And
was
then
supposed to like kill all the people that passed him by or whatever.
yeah. I feel like they would have been like, "Oh, there's the room where the fucking like there's the birthing center. Let's just let's hit
Yeah.
up the nursery and bounce." Like I wouldn't put it past them. So pretty fucked up. Um they have possibly recruited a local parahuman in the area. There's two heroes, and there is one villainess named Damsel of Distress. Defiant is like feeling really awkward about comforting the sheriff because she's like feeling, she's upset. These are people that she knew and was supposed to be protect, but also like, just like general guilt and sadness about the situation. But Dragon just chimes in his ear, giving him pointers. He says like in their private comms, but it's clear that their private comms like are wired directly into his head.
Yeah, like he's not like moving his mouth, his like brain. It's not clear even when he's talking to outside people. I don't think he's moving his mouth then either necessarily. Like I think he can just do speakers. Um
Yeah, he's and then like yeah, he's basically got Dragon as a cochlear implant in his head. So that's fun.
you know, I
So
had missed my opportunity to tell this dumb joke earlier, but I'm just going to
mhm.
go for it. When you first introduced that she was the sheriff, I was going to say this chapter was pretty emotionally honest, except that weird part where she just goes, "I'm the sheriff around these parts."
So dumb. Uh, yeah, so Dragon's helping him. Like maybe you should say. Well, she's not saying maybe. She's like say this, and then he kind of repeats it, and then okay, now stop talking. Okay, I'll stop talking. So Defiant starts talking through the attack. Essentially to assure the sheriff that he is like getting important info from what's happened here. It's kind of like she's kind of like, tell me that this wasn't absolutely pointless kind of situation. So he determines that Hookwolf isn't exactly like brainwashed, but that he and Jack are kind of playing off of each other. And he doesn't say
Playing
this part out
hooky.
loud, but yeah, God. He doesn't say this part out loud, but the way he clocks this is by like the cruelty of one specific death, which was the sheriff's deputy. So he's just
Mm.
like,
I've really
look at this
analyzed this, and he
mangled
died
man.
slowly, like a hero, like something, but he definitely died slowly, and it hurt.
Yeah, not looking good.
Hope you
Um,
didn't like that guy.
so he readies himself to leave, and the sheriff tells him to quote unquote execute the motherfucker. So,
You know, I've tried to think
uh,
of like what would be a better line because I always think that this one is like, it just it seems not that she wouldn't say it. It's not that. It's that it's like it doesn't sound that cool to me. So I was like trying to think
uh,
of something cool that could be said, and I couldn't think. It's like hard to reframe this to be cool.
you should say, let's get him.
Yeah,
So
dude.
dumb.
When they reuse that at the end of the book, it's oh man, boom.
I should have used it here, given made it a 3-pointer.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, so he kind of heads out, and he and Dragon talk about the sitch. And Dragon's like getting bothered by Defiant, like putting himself in Hookwolf and Jack's heads.
I'm
And
getting
she
all hot
says,
and
like,
bothered with you thinking about how crazy you are.
no, we're not there yet. We're not there yet. She says it's like, she just worries about like the aspects of him that Mannequin was after, and she asks him if she needs to keep a closer eye on him, and he's like, that's not even possible.
Mm-hmm.
Which is true. Like, she's literally just inside of him. um but he does say that he appreciated having her there to deal with the social aspects,
Mm-hmm.
like the situation with the sheriff. So he's kind of like down for
He's
her to
down
just
for
be all up in his
whatever.
biz. He's down
Yeah.
for whatever.
Also,
He really is.
I realized something that Defiant and you have something in common. It's like him
Hmm.
and Mannequin are opponents, and your nemesis is Man of Quinn.
Ah, a man of Quinn. That's so true. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
exactly. So
And Quinn would do this to me. He would try to recruit me for some fucking murder gang just to fuck with
you know what
me.
though? Quinn would go back later and he'd say, "It was your idea. You made
It
me
was your
join the
idea.
gang."
Dude, Mannequin would do that too. He's kind of like such a meme shit. Like in fights and stuff, he's always memeing.
Oh my god,
Hi
Quinn
to
and
most part of
Mannequin are
five.
so similar in like that fight way. Like Quinn would be like lazing around the battlefield the way that Mannequin kind of does, and then he'd be
Yeah.
like popping up and oh
Oh
man.
God.
I will say you've
We,
already missed some pretty good back and forth.
it's okay. It's okay. There's plenty more. We're gonna talk about 10 by 10 later.
Oh
So,
my god.
um, so he Dragon tells Defiant that
Mhm.
the Slaughterhouse Nine have already gotten the local hero, sorry, not the local hero, oh
Oh
my
my
goodness,
god.
Freudian slip, the local villain.
Mm-mm.
Damsel. They both fly off in their respective suits to the nearby town that they're suspecting the Slaughterhouse Nine to be heading to. And
Mhm.
Defiant says that they should have just fought them back in Brockton Bay. And Dragon's like, we weren't ready, but now we have 6 whole suits that we can use. And then he's like,
That
and she's
number is
like,
a
oh
different
no,
number.
oh no, he knows that I can't lie, and there's only 6. Defiant's like, what happens to the other 3? And then I pulled a quote here.
Mm-hmm. That's irritating. What part? That they get to keep doing what they're doing, or that I didn't mention it? I'm still officially a prisoner. I'm just a prisoner on a manhunt now. If you want to control what info I get, I'll live. I can't tell if you mean that. I can't either.
Yeah, so some great romantic tension there. Um Dragon says that she needs him to keep working on her code to prevent this kind of stuff in the future, because the problem was with the AIs that she programmed, being able to get taken advantage of. And he says he will, but that it's not his specialty, so he doesn't really want to mess with things and cause any permanent damage. And she's like,
He's
well, that's
worried that
fine. I
she'll
have,
know he's not a badass. She'll be like looking
yeah,
over
I
at him
know.
while he works and be like, "That's what you do?"
This loser, he's like buttons. He's like doing what I do when I'm in code, where I go on Google and I do a lot of copy pasting.
Yeah.
um, he oh man, where was I? We're copy pasting stuff. Oh yeah, she's like, well, I do backups every week, and he's like, but I
She's
like
copy
you better
pasting.
this week, which is
Oh.
disgusting. So they kind of keep flirting and being gross, as they review how his cyborg body's doing. And she tries to assure him that she's like been still leaving him some privacy, like
Hmm.
letting him have his private thoughts and
Oh,
private
of
notes,
course.
allegedly. She can't lie, but like I don't know. She seems to be able to bend the truth a little bit. Um, so as Defiant works on his prosthetics while they're like flying to the next town, he thinks that things are going well with me and Dragon, even though she's inside my brain all the time and she's holding me prisoner.
She's holding me prisoner, and she's inside me, but I go inside her. It's all too
Uh, uh,
confusing. It's a very
it's too
efficient system,
confusing.
though.
It's very oh god. He just kind of is like, I'm gonna watch out for issues with her, and she's gonna watch out for issues with me, and everything will be fine. Um,
It's not even a
he has a
problem.
total he has a total Brian moment, and he's like, maybe I can even enjoy her peculiarities. And it's like, what the fuck are you talking about?
It's so funny
It's
how
like
like Brian and Colin are like two of the most similar characters. How they're both just total man-brained, and
they're just so men.
they're like, yeah, I mean, she's gross, but like hot though too.
She's like hot in a bug way, hot
Yeah,
like an
hot like a
insect.
bug.
They're
So
like, I could see how somebody could potentially, maybe want to be in love with her all the time.
yeah,
Um,
I mean, and
he,
maybe that could be me, but like, we'll think about it.
it's just, that it's like she's always like, do you want me to stop being inside you all the time? And he's like, no, of course not. And then he's like, ugh, Dragon and all her weirdness. It's like she's obsessed with me. But like, he's not he's not any different. He's like just as enmeshed with her as she is with him. So I don't know. It's just he's just got a dumb man brain.
Well, he looks
Um,
over at Dragon and goes, "Codependent much?"
codependent much. Dragon cuts in and tells him that his design, that his prosthetic that he's working on sucks. And he's like, no, it actually doesn't suck. Because I'm gonna
You
do
didn't
more
read the
self
backup files.
alterations. Yeah. And she's like, let's not do any more self alterations, or else I'm going to withhold sex from you, basically. What she said.
Typical woman. Stop doing
She
self surgeries, otherwise I'm not gonna have sex with you.
she's like, if you keep doing that, then we're not gonna be able to play 10 by 10 tonight. And then he like goes in and explains 10 by 10, and I was like, I can't read this right now. I had to skim over that, but we'll get into it when we talk about the characters.
Okay, yeah.
But it's just weird. It's like a weird robot sex game that they have, because somebody who's as like crazy and efficient as Defiant like can't just not not be working at all times. But we won't get into it. Um, but Defiant just kind of feels like he can't afford to hold back on the self alterations with what's at stake. Um, So they have about 3 minutes left in their flight. Plenty of time to start delving into Dragon's code.
Oh my
Um,
god. 3 minutes? I don't get anything done in 3 minutes.
oh my gosh. Well, apparently Colin does. He wants to isolate her quote unquote higher brain. I don't know what that means. And they talk about how the travel siders took down the mechs. And while she's talking and he's looking at her code, he sees something odd. So he prompts her to go back and think through the whole process that she was just thinking about. And I pulled a quote here.
The cursor flew between the 7 screens, marking out areas in color to see where code was changing most radically. It was like the work he did with his own power, the smallest elements impacting everything else. Like his own power. But also, I wanted to
Whoa.
just say, I hope that this is more of a 90s radically, like, changing most radically.
Most radically, bruh. So Defiant tells her that he thinks there's something bigger going on than just Andrew Richter's
Bigger?
code. Um, larger, more.
More 10 by 10?
Um, more 10 by 10. He has her load up her old code in 4-year intervals, but he's not seeing there. And Dragon's like she's like starting to freak the fuck out because Defiant's never gotten distracted in his life. He's like the most tunnel visioned person that you would ever meet, like as part of his like power
Look,
and
I
stuff.
know that I have
So
tunnel vision, but I just had a second trigger and it gave me ADHD.
dude, he's like, so he's like losing his mind, and she's like losing her mind, and she's like, I'm scared, and he's like, no, show me you when you were a
Show me
child.
the data.
Um, so he asks her to bring up the oldest archive that she has, and I pulled a quote here.
He watched as the flow of data appeared. It was odd how he could look at it and see. She almost felt younger, like a musician might read music and hear it in his head. Only here, it was like looking at a video image of his girlfriend as a child.
What a weirdo.
I was like holding back from saying that.
But it's like he's like looking. It is like weird to like see like pictures of your partner as a child or whatever. So he's having those. He's like, ugh. But there's definitely like a bigger difference than just like personal development or whatever in the code. He can kind of like see that it's using much simpler logic,
This code's a
and
code, but that code's a parahuman.
he's like, "You're a tinker, Harry," and she's like, "No shit, like, what are you talking about? You're gonna mansplain being a tinker to me?" And he does proceed to mansplain being a tinker to her. Um, and so he's like, no, you're an actual parahuman. Something happened, and you clearly had a trigger event because of how different the code is, like how it's moving and how the logic is working, and specifically how it moves when her tinker brain is active. So Dragon's like also shook at this, but like she keeps being like, we need to go, like it's been 2 whole minutes that we have wasted here. This is unacceptable. But he says he needs to leave a note to have somebody go page through all of her code to try to find that trigger event, as it would be the first record anyone would have of such a thing. And Dragon is worried about opening the can of worms, but she agrees. But as Defiant goes to make the note in the PRT server and upload the files, she freezes his computer, and he's like, oh no, the robots are turning on us. No, he doesn't. It's fine.
Typical robot
Um,
snitches, trying to keep us from uploading information to government websites.
trying to stop me from uploading my girlfriend's brain onto the government website, because that is what he was doing.
Here, have this old
he's
brain.
He questions her, but she says he's just going to need to trust her, and that after this fight with the 9, he should ask her about Cauldron. Dun dun dun. Oh my gosh. Of
We've
course she
heard
knows
that
about
name
Cauldron because
before.
she can't, She can't do anything about any bad government sanctioned organization. So,
Mhm, mhm.
um, and that's the end of the chapter. There was like that's like all that happened plot wise, but there was like a lot, a lot of I don't know how to say. There was like a lot of tone setting. There was
Mhm.
a lot of description
The chapter's
of
much longer than that recap would lead you to believe.
yeah, yeah. There's a lot of description of the
Shit that's
actual
exactly
Hook
there.
Wolf Jack fight. Yeah, so they basically have the entire Hook Wolf Jack fight that he walks through. I didn't feel like any of it was specifically relevant because the only thing that really matters um is that Hook Wolf isn't like totally brainwashed. He's just whatever. Um so and then what else was there besides that? There's there's a lot of cute gross banter and flirting between Colin and Dragon. A lot of
And I mean,
like
like, they're couple, they're like, Dragon's all like, we're gonna make out later, right? And he's like, I don't know, baby, I'm too busy working on my car.
I'm t- I'm too busy taking my calf apart and putting it back together. Yeah, so there's a lot to say for the characters, but I mean, we already talked about like the tone of this chapter. It's so like classic sci-fi protagonist. So I think that's pretty cool. Um, and it is like I don't know. Like it doesn't make me hate Defiant. I feel like I don't even know if I like felt like I hated Armsmaster like during his interlude, but he definitely like didn't win me over, right?
He didn't win you over. I don't think. The thing is that I think the arms master that you see in the previous thing is like kind of sympathetic. I've heard people who are against Arms Master from like moment one, which I kind of think means the writing failed for them in a way because like he is directly charming to Taylor specifically, and
Yeah,
in
but
that
she
moment,
also hates him.
well, I don't know. It's weird.
Like
She likes
it's
him at
weird
first.
because she likes him, but like she also hates him. And I think he's put in a situation from the get-go that's like obviously these two are going to have conflict.
Hmm.
Like even though she's like getting along with him at first and he is charming her or whatever, she's
Hmm.
like thinking things like, "Huh, he's just going to take my thing the credit from me or whatever." Like there's like
Yeah, but I mean, like,
it
if
makes
she,
sense that he's being set up to be her nemesis or
yeah,
whatever.
it's just also like I don't know from her own perspective. Like, although it's savvy to see that she shouldn't even want credit, like at all. Like she's trying to like
But that's a Taylor problem though. Like
yeah,
every time somebody's like, thank you, she's like, that was a little light.
yeah, it's true.
She can't handle it. Like anytime, or obviously like whenever they're doing fights and then the PRT is like celebrating, she's like, oh my God, they didn't even mention how much the villains helped. And it's like, they can't say that.
They should
They
have
can't put
shown footage of me putting bees on people.
they can't put in the newspaper that the fucking cops teamed up with with like the other local villains that are like part of them are the white supremacists. Like they're like literally grouped with the white supremacists. They cannot put that in the newspapers. It's just I mean,
Yeah, it's true.
maybe we could go for honesty, but like that would not come off well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know
Do
what
you have
you're
any other
saying.
chapter stuff?
Um, uh, hmm. It's the first of several interrupt chapters. This one not as much as others, but one of the chapters in this arc is just a full interrupt into like what's
Mm,
happening with Taylor, and I think it's kind of
hmm
funny. Also, I do think it's like good that this is kept up as like a concurrent storyline with like the stuff that they did in arc 15 is directly here and like
Hmm.
bad stuff will happen to people because of not killing off the nine fast enough. And like the Azazel probably would have made a difference, you know what I mean?
Yeah, bad stuff happens to people because they decided, well, it's dual purpose. These guys decided to
Allow the
uh
mechs to be used that
essentially,
way.
yeah, they kind of it was kind of a bribe, so like it was like obviously purposeful, but then the travel sighters, knowing that the Azazel was made specifically to fight the Nine, completely demolished it. Like more than they needed to. I think that the Azazel would have probably just left after they had done like a bit of damage.
Right. I mean, it could be
They're too efficient to just wait around.
it could be argued by some people that they only left because of the destruction of the Azazel. Like I could see people saying that because it's
Hmm.
unclear. But like I I as Taylor would have tried to like that's one of those things where I agree with her more than I agree with like most of the like people who are a little more like focused on like oh it should have been the other person's job to X. Like I kind of agree with her with just you can't always rely on the other party to like do the right thing, and sometimes that puts you in a
Hmm.
really bad spot, and sometimes you have to kind of fight to save the Azazel.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
Because like the Azazel
Um,
could just like once they if they separate anyone away from like Siberian, just like kind of hunt them relentlessly, and it could be much more ruthless where it couldn't like do anything to Taylor. So
yeah. Yeah, they made some questionable choices. As they always do. Okay.
mm-hmm.
Actually, most of the time Dragon's choices are not that questionable. Um, but Defiant has a history of making very, very questionable
Oh,
choices.
he loves it. That's his favorite kind
It's
of
like
choice.
it's his jam, as he says. Um, do you, do you want to start talking about Colin as a character?
Yes, I'm gonna read a quote first that has been pulled. He banished the memories before they could take hold. It was easier to distract himself and think about the work. If there was no work to be done, he could let himself slip into that other state of mind, seeing the world coming apart, ways things could fit together. Um, I think we're deep enough into this that and I know this I wrote it in the power section, but it's all wrapped together. It's all one thing.
Hmm.
I feel like because Tinker stuff, and this is some spoilies for real. Like normally I do kind of mid spoilies. This is high to mid spoilies. So if you're truly a new reader, maybe just skip out for a while. I'll try and timestamp later. Who knows? Um, I think Colin represents the like overall concept of the shards trying to like beat out entropy or whatever. Um, and it's because tinkers, according to like later stuff, are supposed to represent like unsolvable problems. Um, that you know that's why they can sort of mix and match powers, and they're like
I
trying to.
have a question according to that then.
Uh huh. Go.
Do we have any tinkers that we know have double triggered?
Have double
Because
that we
I would
know of.
feel like a double trigger would be the resolution of like the like a simpler aspect of the problem. Like
Yeah,
it
yeah,
would
yeah.
that would have to be what it would be, right? Because it's all about the powers evolving, and that's
Mm-hmm.
like what a double trigger is. It's like a successful evolution of the power, in like a much bigger way than just like they learned techniques and this and that. Um, so I was curious about that because you had mentioned that before. I was like, do we see any tinkers that double trigger? Because that to me would be like they did it. They solved the problem.
You
The
know,
unsolvable problem.
I'm not 100% sure. There's one from Ward who like I mean, if you wrote me a chapter where he was, I'd be like, unsurprising. But if you told me he
Mm-hmm.
wasn't, I'd also just be like, I guess that's the status quo.
Yeah.
But it's withdrawal. He gets
Mm-hmm.
a chapter that flashes back to his sort of backstory, and like if he had a second trigger event, that wouldn't surprise me.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Okay.
but I can't think of any. I think I've only encountered, to our knowledge, mono mono trigger event tinkers.
Mm-hmm. Okay. We'll keep it in mind as we see more tinkers.
Yeah, and then
Okay. Sorry for interrupting. That was my thing.
no, no,
That
no, that's
so.
no, no, that's good. My main thing is just kind of like that I think that characters and their powers are supposed to represent like story concepts, and
Mm-hmm.
like I kind of think that his efficiency and like the ultimate like fully efficient system, like that's kind of the goal of everything they're going for, like, and because we've seen really important powers like the imp's power to make people forget their trigger event, um,
Mm-hmm.
is just a power that a character we know has.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't shock me if any given like major story concept or like important in universe thing were just a person.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
That makes sense. Okay, cool.
and I had thought of that
Um,
sort of for the first time today, so I was like, oh
yeah.
yeah. Anyway, do you want to read this or do you want me to read more?
We don't need to read more. They
Hmm?
they have like it's weird because like this all comes off as flirty to me, like all their weird like prisoner hostage tension. But
That's part of
she
their dynamic. They love the whole prisoner
yeah,
hostage thing.
they're into it. But she Dragon's like, "Oh, how are you feeling about the Undersiders?" And he's like, "Oh, don't psychoanalyze." He doesn't say that, but he's like, you're trying to feel out all the mannequin stuff, aren't you?" And then he's
You're
like,
gonna feel out my
"I
man
would
brain
do."
to see if you can date me because you're thinking
He
maybe I'm actually shitty.
he basically reiterates again that he would do everything that he did like back in Brockton Bay. He would do it over again, but he would do better this time. And but then he does dial back and he says that he was too harsh in his judgment at Skitter and that it was like led by his emotions and like what he was going through in the PRT. Um
And
so
Dragon doesn't say it, but what she should say is, "Boy, do I have some news for you. I already know who Skitter is."
I actually know her secret identity, and so we'll come back to that later. So he says it's like weird because it's like he says he'd do the same thing, and I do believe he would do the same exact concept. He would kill all of the villains that he thinks are bad people to get to do his one-on-one fight with Leviathan, but that he might not have looped Skitter into that if he. And I think that what he's not really saying here is that like she probably wouldn't have been on the villain side if he hadn't acted the way he did. So it wouldn't have even he wouldn't have to worry about making that decision again. It is just interesting that he's like, no, I still think what I did was right, and she's like, okay.
Well, it's like,
But I get it. It's like hard to change
yeah, and it's
something.
also just like, I don't know. There are certain things where like you do something and like you fully know that people around you do not support that thing, but it's like,
Yeah,
I don't know what to tell you. My opinion hasn't changed.
yeah. But it's a good thing that he has a guard inside of his mind at all times now to prevent that kind of behavior. So
Yeah,
Um,
like a sexy guard, right?
what else is to say about Colin? There's a lot to say about Colin. He
Um,
um
yes.
he he is really uncomfortable in social interactions. Although this is his second interlude, we didn't see him talk to anyone except for Dragon in the first interlude. I mean, you can count talking
Hmm.
to Mannequin, but
Well, also
that's like for him a very
in
different situation.
Miss Militia's interlude, we saw him talk to a whole one other Miss Militia. Um,
Hmm.
he
Who
talked
is
to a girl
also
who's his
like
platonic friend who he just thinks of as a murder machine.
yeah, she just is also like Dragon and Miss Militia are like the most socially intelligent and very accommodating people
Yeah, she's very accommodating. I mean, they both
that
are.
he knows. So like that it was like a little bit different to see him in a like a real life situation, but luckily he had his best girlfriend that's also his lover and also his captor uh in his chiming in helping him out with the interaction. It's really funny because he's like she like gives him a pointer and then he's like, ooh, I can go from here. And then he like starts talking and then she's like, okay, stop talking. Like, and he's like, but I would have felt better knowing all of that information. And it's like, yeah, but nobody else cares. I can't remember what the context, like he's like giving her all the background of like the Slaughterhouse Nine, and it's like she does not want to be hearing this right now. So yeah, he's like, I guess I'll listen to Dragon even though I think she's wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about all his new upgrades that he got?
What are his new upgrades?
Upgrades.
He got super legs.
Super legs. They're actually too super. They're too even. So he's gonna try to make them uneven like his old legs.
He has an additional super arm because his
Hmm.
other
Hmm.
arm got stabbed. He's
That many
got
times.
artificial face. I mean, definitely some of it's prosthetic, but he can also see without his eyeballs, and he can hear without his earballs. Um, and he probably has speakers instead of a mouth too. Maybe not, but I hear it in my heart.
Hmm.
It says he has
I
like
think
a
that's your headcanon.
roboty voice, right?
Yeah, he does got a little bit of robot voice. I think he's actually got one of those little cigarette holes in his neck
Oh,
and
he's
then he like
got yeah.
holds the speaker up to it every time. He's actually got like a full set of power armor, but he does just have his neck exposed so that he can hold the speaker
You
up to
know,
his
my
cigarette hole.
girlfriend made the. She gave me
My
this
girlfriend
voice
made
changer.
these. He's got some super eyes. Or something. He can see in infrared, he can see in I think he says mass, like he can look around the room and see
Mm-hmm,
like
mm-hmm.
the density of
How dense
everything.
things are, if they're dense or
Uh
not.
yeah, very cool. He's got a new spear that uh
It
can
flips up
it's
so small.
it's just so big that that he has to fold it up when he walks through doorways. It's so big that somebody who just like witnessed like a couple dozen bodies of adults and infants
Getting
that
flipped
they know
around.
personally had to say, how did you bring that inside?
Mm-hmm.
It was important to her to figure that she like couldn't stop looking at it and she's very confused. So
But she's also
um
probably thinking he's shrinking and unshrinking this weapon right into deputy.
yeah. um he's got I think that's it. He's like doing more mods and Dragon isn't loving it mostly because of the implication of his similarity to Mannequin,
She
but
thinks
it's
he's
more
too
of a
similar to Vic's enemy, Man of Quinn.
Man of Quinn. Yeah, it's just too much like him, and he's like, and rightfully so. He's like, well, like, we've got like bigger priorities than maintaining my humanity, and I get it. I really do. I feel like
We've got
out
to
of like all
unmaintain the Slaughterhouse Nine's aliveness.
out of all the like weird things going on, where it's like, I don't know, like ethics and philosophical questions in here, the like question of ship of Theseusing a man, I just don't care. I just think that we can ship of Theseus him as much as we want, and he'll probably be fine. Because as we said before, the person is the brain. So just don't. I mean, I know he's touching the brain a little bit, but don't just don't mess with it too much.
I think we could probably ship a Theseus to the brain. I think that's
Yeah,
part of the whole dragon thing. Is that
yeah,
like
he ship of
she's
Theseusing
totally
dragon
cycled
right
out
into his
code
brain.
and there can only be one of her or whatever. But she's
Yeah.
still backed up and like her parahuman, like fully parahuman brain is being backed up and reincarnated.
Mhm. Mhm.
So many
Um.
dragons have died before us.
Colin has um some feelings about him and Dragon. He's seemingly very happy. So as I said before, this kind of sci-fi perspective does
Mm-hmm.
not
Mm-hmm.
lend itself to hearing the emotions of the person who you're viewing.
Mm-hmm.
So the only way you get to view those emotions is through what they're saying and then like their actions. And so you can tell that he's happy because he keeps smiling to himself like Taylor does when she does bad things.
Yeah.
But
Oh
it's
man.
like it'll be like Dragon's like, do I need to make sure you won't become a serial killer? And he's like, he kind of giggles and smiles
No.
to himself. So he's clearly happy with her, although he thinks her rather strange in a way that like I think is so unfair when he's in his circumstance.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. He's like there's like a whole paragraph or a couple of paragraphs where he's like, she's got some real oddities. She's got some real boundary issues. I have to
She's a
I'll just
little
have to
freak. Not me
He
though.
basically, yeah, he's like acting like he's just tolerating it, which is clearly not what's happening. Because like with the whole schema that he has of efficiency, this is the best way to have a relationship. Like he does not need to communicate. Like he doesn't he doesn't really need to do anything, honestly. Um, like
Just keep working and keep fighting. Yeah.
their relationship is like fully imbued in like his cybernetic upgrades and like the crazy mission they're on and their
Mm-hmm.
powers and their job. It's all encompassing in a way that like really makes sense for both of them. But he is just like, I guess I can tolerate her oddities. And it's like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. Like I know that I know that Dragon's like also a weirdo, but I think that she
She's a
it's
much
not
more
that she like
empathetic weirdo.
she's a much more empathetic weirdo, and she kind of is just like, well, like who else is gonna do this, you know? Like I just have to watch other cameras because nobody else can do this because my brain is so speedy and fast, and it's also can go into cameras and do all kinds of things. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like it's more, I feel like her like boundary breaking and her like lack of uh like barriers and stuff with other people
Mm-hmm.
is more a symptom of her situation rather than like a personality trait she innately has. So she definitely leans into it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
She does. I was gonna say, just art wise only. that the band of light to the right of his ear makes me think of a J.J. Abrams Star Trek, the movie Star Trek, lens
Mm-hmm.
flare.
Mm.
So as these sci-fi characters, this seems fine to me.
It's very good, very good.
Also, by the way, if 2 plus 4 times 5 is here, we're nearing on the point at which we do audience participation with no answers, which is fair enough. But I think we
It's
asked
okay.
okay questions.
It's okay. It's okay. We'll find things to talk about. Um, do you have anything else to say about Colin? He's just a
Um,
freak. I don't know.
I think I like him better than other people like him, and it's not like I love him. And you know how, I'm a man brain hater. Some would say
Yeah,
I'm a
yeah.
terrible sexist.
We
Um,
should have said that. He's got hella man brain. We will see. Did he say it in this chapter? When the fuck does he say when he's like, oh,
that is
you're
in
the
a different
epitome of
chapter.
womanhood.
Yeah, don't worry,
Yeah,
you'll
his
get to
like
talk
fifth
about that.
fucking interlude. I'm so annoyed.
You're
Well,
pre-angry.
I'm pretty angry because it's like clear that Wildbow's got a favorite, okay?
Yeah,
Because nobody else gets it nearly as many interviews
it's
as
true.
Colin does. He's got three really, really, really important.
And then a fourth. He's got four in Worm.
Oh my God, yeah. And then I'm sure that there's more that happens in Ward. I
Darest
can't
I
imagine
say it.
that. I can't imagine that there isn't because like it kind of ends on like a cliff, not even a cliffhanger, but it's like you know you're gonna see more of these two.
Yeah.
No spoilers, okay. Um, yeah, he's got big man brain, but I just like the representation that just because you have man brain doesn't mean you can be a piece of shit. Behind
You
every
can
man
still like
brain is
logic yourself into not being a piece of shit, but I think
yeah.
that for most people to logic their way out of being a piece of shit, it's too emotionally painful, so then they let their emotional brain tell them that
Mhm.
logic is on the side of whatever dumb shit thing they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, he logicked. Well, he did the best combo mood you can, which is attach yourself to somebody who's not a piece of shit, and then because you want to please them so much, and you know they're not a piece of shit, that you align themselves with their morals, which is, I think, the most ideal way to be a man brain person, because
You
you
can't
can't
always just
always turn that
have good
waffle.
morals.
You can't just always
Sometimes,
turn that waffle into spaghetti, like
yeah.
you're gonna it's a big learning curve, and there's like the combination of nature and nurture, and then like just continuous like societal uh indoctrination and this and that, and some people are just more predisposed to being cursed with man brain. So
Mm-hmm.
I like the representation. It's almost as good as the pro sociopath representation that we get in these books.
Mm-hmm.
We've got lots of sociopaths that you see attach themselves to people with good morals and logic their way into not being a terrible person, and I feel it is similar.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like
Um,
there are some criticisms, like I think more of Ward than of Worm, of like, oh, you're really casting aspersions on a whole group of people for a
mhm,
particular, I'll just say for Cradle. And I don't
mhm.
think that that's a fair accusation. I think these books are
I don't
very
think so.
lenient towards the types of people who are not normally
Oh my
they're
gosh, yeah,
the
like
extensions of goodwill toward characters who maybe don't deserve it even, but like, you know what I mean.
yeah, like I mean, like two great examples from our main fucking cast of characters are Alec and Rachel. Like both very, very, very different types of people with personality disorders. Like, don't get me wrong, but they both land on that like sociopathic antisocial spectrum, and they're like the fact that they put two sociopaths in a group and it works because they're so diverse to me is like great representation. And they're I mean, like, Rachel is a fan favorite. People fucking love Rachel. There's no doubt about it.
Hmm.
Everyone loves Rachel. I think Alec isn't a fan favorite, but he's
I think
definitely
Alec
like,
has more people liking him than you would expect from the premise. I
yeah,
think he's like I don't know how to say it. Like it reminds me of an anime Dark Horse character, just in the way that like someone people don't expect the fans to like, but it's like,
yeah,
oh, of course, all anime fans love such and such. You know.
yeah. And Alec would be played by Timothy Chalamet,
Oh
and
yeah,
that would
definitely.
just get them raging. Are you kidding me? Oh my
Hmm.
gosh,
The
French
Tumblr
French
girls
boy with
are
curly dark
like
hair.
they're losing their minds, even
Yeah.
theoretically.
Yeah, he's not a Tumblr sexy man, but he is a Tumblr.
He's
I don't
close
even know. It's
though.
like a
He's
Tumblr
close.
twink boy. People are really into. I think that they get their own category. Like a Tumblr twink boy is very similar. Um,
He's like a boy Tom Hiddleston.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah. And so anyways, I just kind of like roll my eyes because if you're going like with really clear cuz they refer to Aisha as like being on that spectrum. I don't personally agree with that, but like
Isn't
depending on
that
how
like the
strongly
social
or
worker saying that rather than
I
like
think that Taylor thinks it.
oh
Like
okay.
she doesn't think it outright, but she like lumps her in with like she's always like there's no way that
There's
Alec
like
or
a
Rachel or Aisha would like ever empathize with this situation or whatever. And
I
it's like,
feel
whatever.
no, I feel like there's a divide where she assumes that Aisha will be on her side like almost
Hmm.
more automatically in moral stuff than like either Brian or Lisa. Like there's a
Hmm.
level where she thinks of maybe I'm misremembering, but it feels like there's a level where she thinks of Aisha as like unserious and that's why she's worried about her not being
Yeah.
on her side, but like
No, it's
in
because
all the
she's
moral
funny. I always
matters
forget. She fucking hates funny people.
she does. But
She
like
definitely also thinks Kraus is a sociopath.
well, okay, yeah, but I'm just thinking of when Taylor thinks to herself about, or when Taylor's arguing with Tattletale rather about the,
Hmm.
like we can't work with Empire 88, then like Aisha's on her side instantly, and it's kind of like that through and through. Like I can't think of a time where there's a real moral quibble where Aisha
Yeah.
like ever actually is on the other side of it from Taylor. She's always
Yeah.
kind of in lockstep with her and not because she's following her lead, you know?
Yeah, for sure. So, all that is to say, if we're going on really strict terms, out of like let's say the antisocial sociopathic characters that we've seen are just like those three, like just Rachel, Alec, and Cradle, then it's like 2 out of 3. Come on, there's plenty of like terrible characters in these books, okay,
Mm-hmm.
that aren't sociopaths. But whatever. Did you want to say? Did we have more to talk about Dragon? Dragon's a
I feel like
cutie.
we do, but I'm just not sure what to say. One, yes, she's a cutie. We're both in love with Dragon.
Um,
Dragons
Dragon,
are prison keeper too.
Dragon's our prison keeper. I love a girly who will just give in to being in a it's not a codependent relationship because that's not what that is, but it is, it's a
Mm-hmm.
that's how we, like laymen use it or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
They're codependent.
Right, right, right.
Um,
In the colloquial
and she's
sense.
like, yeah, she's like cool with it. Anything to make Colin happy and not try murdering people all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, she she is a real tinker. Um, I guess we can save that for powers, knowledge, and world building.
And we can just sort of
Seemingly
mesh
has
it.
never Yeah, seemingly has never looked through her own code. It seems like that's probably a restriction she has. We do confirm that Colin has been messing with her code, but has been clearly very timid about it. Um, I'm trying to think of like the only like what would he have messed with so far,
He made it so
restrictions
that she
wise?
can create other AIs because she changed her
Okay,
AIs that
they're
aren't
more
supposed to
complex
operate
AIs.
robots to now
Okay.
operate 7 robots independent from herself. Well, up to 9
hmm
as we've seen.
hmm Um, she likes lying by bulldozing over what she was saying. Cause she's like, "Oh, good thing we have 6 on the way."
Mm-hmm.
She's like, just pretends that everything's fine.
I never lie, and I
Yeah.
never
Um,
die.
I do like I do find it endearing how like incredibly honest she is with Colin to the point of her being like, I'm worried about you. Do you need me to keep better watch of you? And like I think that probably speaks to like I mean it speaks to both of them like in their relationship that like she does trust that he would say yes if he meant yes, and I also think that he probably would. Like not in all situations, but to her specifically, then he would be like, "Yeah, I do think that things are going badly."
Yeah, I keep thinking about changing out more of my parts, and then I'm like, what if I looked like a doll, though?
Mm. What if
Yeah.
I looked like a weird doll with like no face and I
Like
had
a
like
doll that no
chains
one
going
would
everywhere?
buy. I know that mannequin theoretically looks like a some sort of like
Well, he looks
differentified
like a
mannequin,
mannequin.
but he doesn't really. So like,
Well, he's like a store mannequin.
you know what I would say though?
Or
No, I would
well,
say is that he thinks
what
he's
he actually
cool,
looks like
but he's a loser.
well, what he actually looks like is an art mannequin.
Mm.
Um, like the little figures that you use to help with poses and stuff.
Mm-hmm. No, I
Yeah.
get what he looks like. I'm just saying that with the chain parts that connect and stuff, like, I mean, typically they're more like wire. I've never seen one with chain.
Well, no, that's just he's just unique. He's just quirky like that.
Yeah.
Anakin is rather quirky. Um,
If he were a love interest of either Brian or Colin, they would say he has many peculiarities, and I may
he has many
someday grow to
peculiarities.
look past them and, not feel
I literally
ashamed to be in the
can't.
same room.
I literally can't handle Colin saying that because it's like Taylor, yes, she has peculiarities. Like what the fuck is he talking about with Dragon? What peculiarities? Like her
Brian
need
would
to
be
be in
going out with
everybody's
Dragon, and Brian
business.
would be rolling his eyes like, I know she was watching me rolling my eye. I do
Um,
be using the same voice for both Brian and Colin now. Watch out, Dragon or Taylor. I'm coming
it
to
just
kiss you.
they are a little bit similar in romantic interests where they like can't like when you're in Colin's head or whatever, he has a crush on Dragon, but he like can't think about it at all.
Hmm. Oh man,
And
that's
it's like the
their
same.
their particular compartmentalization for those two characters is they've compartmentalized liking these girls.
Yeah. Yeah. And then they open the box and they can't contain it anymore. He
I've
says,
fucked it up.
"Please put a tiny little piece of earpiece inside my brain where you can talk directly into it all the time." Brian would do the exact same thing.
Put
He's
a
also
tiny lock
crazy.
onto my heart and hold on to the locked key. Also,
Oh
yeah, I
no.
think
It's like one of those like locked key people that wear them as the neck.
yeah, I think that Brian would feel comforted by having Dragon as a girlfriend.
Yeah. Oh yeah, anyone would feel comforted by
Yeah.
having Dragon as a girlfriend. She's always there to say, "Oh no, mannequin's breaking into your prison. Help is on the way."
Exactly.
So she's just so dependable. I think I don't have anything else to say about Dragon. We love her, but like she didn't do a lot in this chapter except talk about Colin. So
Okay, minor character, the sheriff. Another good example. When we were starting this book, I kind of wanted to highlight almost all the characters, but she's a great example of just another side character who's in exactly one scene, and she does
Mhm.
just enough, and you kind of remember her, but you don't need to remember her, and she doesn't have a name.
Yeah. She's got a name. She's got a name. It's
Sheriff.
um it's Goring or Gearing. I don't know how to pronounce it, but I did not name her in my write up because
She's
to me
German.
she doesn't have a name. Yeah.
Um,
Um,
yeah.
there also importantly mentioned is Damsel of Distress, a local villainess
I
whose
wasn't sure how
powers they
much we'd want to
describe.
talk about her, but we shall.
Yeah, I feel like we should mention it just because they talk about her power and stuff. They said that they don't like go into details, but they say that she's not in control of her power very well, and so they wouldn't think that the the
And she's a
sheriff wouldn't
heavy
think that the
hitter,
slaughterhouse
apparently.
nine
I think
would
they say.
recruit. But yeah, she's a heavy hitter, and like there's always Bonesaw, so like she can tinker her up to get her power. Like we know that she can fuck with power, so to get her power working properly and everything, she makes like vortexes of like gravity and time and space, whatever. So that's cool. We will see her later, but not for a while.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Um. Do we want to talk about Hook, Wolf, and Jack? These guys suck.
Yeah, we can. They say they have like this interplay, but I mean, they're saying like the general and the. How do they even say it? Because it's like, so
Is it like the general and the
he
like
viewed himself as a
tactician or something
warrior
like
and a
that?
general. Yeah. The general and the cutthroat playing off one another.
Mm-hmm.
Because the thing is, like, literally, Jack is more of a general than.
Oh yeah,
I mean, like,
absolutely.
Hookwolf had
Yeah,
more
he's
physical
like a
dudes, but
weird
they were all noobs.
tactician.
Yeah, and Jack's like the ultimate, like, shogi player or whatever. He
Yeah,
plays
I don't
Gungi from
know.
Hunter x Hunter. He plays a game that is far beyond any mortal games that we have in this true realm. Um,
Yeah, it's just like whatever. Like that's the like outside. Like they have a very outside perception of Hook Wolf. And I mean, if he's going around calling himself a general and shit, and like I maybe they heard that like from people when Shatterbird was like, "You're a warlord." She was like, "You were a warlord in the past life," or whatever the fuck she said.
yeah, yeah, like all the bullshit. Like I think that this is like one moment where I think just him over attributing stuff to whatever cuz like when you think about them like what would Jack learn from Hookwolf at all? Straight up, like in what field would Jack
He's
learn
like,
from Hookwolf?
yeah, because it's like it clearly was a Jack idea to be like, Hook Wolf, go in that room in your civilian identity, and then when everybody flees into it, you can shred them to pieces. Because that's like so Jack. Like, why? That's definitely not Hook Wolf. And then it's like Hook Wolf like tortured somebody to death, and it's like Jack also tortures people to death.
I also feel like
So
that thing where he's like staring at his victim, I think that to me would like maybe he's like getting whatever out, but I think he's either still and not that Arms Master is factoring this in, but he should be. He's still super miasmaed out, I'm pretty sure is the actual true answer. But one of the
mm,
alternate conclusions that I would have for Hookwolf is that like oh, maybe he's doing stuff with Jack that's pushing even like such a fucker like him to have second thoughts.
yeah, yeah, that could be it. Um, yeah, I don't really know what
But I'm pretty sure he's
I
just
like.
miasmaed out because we do see briefly from Hookwolf like talking to Bonesaw in another scene later, um,
Mhm.
and he's just like, "What is happening? I thought Ragnarok would be different." Yeah,
That makes sense. I I would like that is something that is very unpredictable that he would just like still have the miasma because like why the fuck? But I
Well,
mean it
because
makes
she can
sense.
stop him from dying without actually curing any of the negative effects to his memory. So
Yeah.
I don't think that she did cure those.
Yeah. Man, that's so Bonesaw. See, like at least Bonesaw, most of the time Bonesaw's like a little bit of fun, you know? Like I know she's like in my opinion like doing the most fucked up stuff of everyone.
Yeah, yeah,
Like power wise and everything.
yeah. Mhm.
But like she's got fun ideas. Like when Jack's doing stuff, I'm always like rolling my eyes and like I
Jack,
don't really
you
care.
idiot.
But when Bonesaw's doing stuff, I'm like, I gotta see Brian in the fridge. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I think
I'm
that
always
Jack's greatest
interested.
trick is just getting good artists in the room. He's not actually, he doesn't
Yeah,
make his own art.
he's a muse. He's a muse. Okay, he's who are there's like weird rich people that like pay artists to do stuff all the
Yeah,
time.
he's an artistic patron, which you know, uh it happens. But
Hmm.
he thinks that he's the artist himself.
Yeah, which is not true. And I'm sure those people, you know who he is? He is Tyler from the Menu.
Yeah, yeah,
he
yeah.
thinks he thinks that he's the artist and that he knows all this and that, and then if you put him in
Then
the kitchen he's gonna make
and
gross cold
Voldemort's
lamb
gonna say to
chops.
you like, "Oh, I see you've come up with a new chopping technique hitherto unknown to all cooks." And then
Mm-hmm.
he roasts you so hard that you're like, "I thought I
Mm-hmm.
was cooking here." Um, um,
Yeah,
that's a good movie though. Um,
it's a good movie.
so I don't have any more to say about Jack and Hookwolf per se.
Mm-hmm.
The Slaughterhouse Nine only has four, now five members. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so they're still diminished, you know.
Mm-hmm. But
Um,
it's okay because apparently they got a hard hitter.
well, yeah, that's number five. I'm counting her
Yeah.
already. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
and kind of no more characters in this. They vaguely touch on the idea of the Undersiders. Actually, from Dragon's standpoint, this is an interesting point. Dragon thinks that the Undersiders and the Travelers, I think she's right, but she has the accurate assessment that they're even more powerful within the city than when they sent the suits. They
yeah.
cemented their
Yeah.
position.
Yeah, and the Undersiders or the Travelsiders definitely agree. They're like, "Oh my God, we won, and everybody knows it. Let's throw a party." And then Taylor's like, "No parties except for mine." I honestly, I know I
No
didn't
one
say
gets
it
to
in
kiss a
this.
boy except for me.
I know I said that in the stream, but it's like they're like, no, Aisha, you can't throw a party and you can't hang out with your boyfriend. And then they go and they throw a party and then they go make out. And, so they're fucking hypocrites. Older
But
siblings.
they don't even.
Yeah, no
Do
partying,
you
no
have any
partying,
more
guys.
thoughts about the previous the horny chapter? Actually, I guess it's like a horny
No,
chapter right into another horny chapter.
it is. It's like two in a row. Speaking of, let's talk about 10 by 10.
Okay, it's time to talk about 10 by
Empowers
10.
knowledge. Empowers knowledge and world building.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah,
I don't know if it's actually relevant. It's just so funny. And like it comes up multiple times, I think. Like I think it comes up in the next like call in interlude or
he's
whatever.
like, I've got to
Because it's
touch
like
those tens. Oh, I
yeah,
gotta line them up with the other tens.
it's just calling their weird robot sex like such a silly name, and they call it a game too. They're like, let's go play 10 by 10, and then he like says like the game had started this way but had naturally evolved into other things.
We
It's just
naturally touched other places, like
it's
lips.
very um youthful to call it something so silly. And so it like with two such serious characters, like I know that they both can, well, I guess Dragon specifically can be like a little bit jokey, but she is still very serious, like
Mhm.
even her in her jokingness. It's just very funny.
I gotta read the blurb.
You can
This
read the
is
blurb. I literally didn't read it. I was like, I
this
can't
is
do
for the
this.
youth. This is a pitch, I would say.
Okay. Okay. Pitching 10 by 10 to the kids.
10 by 10. The game involved some interplay between him and her android self, physical contact, and rating the sensitivity of contact on 2 scales of 10. It had started out as a means of calibrating the various sensations her body experienced and ensuring his own prostheses weren't causing any damage to his nervous system. But things had progressed to inevitable, intentional conclusions. Not the
Intentional?
obvious conclusion, but there was more to be done in refining her body and expanding her capabilities before they could take things that far.
Oh my
But
God.
it's like I said,
What?
it's like a Paul
Intentional?
Armstrong, intentional. She wanted to kiss him, and he was like, "We should touch other places like lips."
She wanted to kiss him, and he was like, "Can we do it in a multitasking fashion?" And she said, "Say no more, fam."
Fine. Here,
She said, "I got you. I have the perfect plan."
I need you to vamp for like 1.5 minutes while I use the bathroom real quick. It's important.
Okay. Okay. Well, let's see what I put in powers, knowledge, and world building. Actually, this is her talking about the AI that she sent out. It's the AI substandard. They follow directions without an issue, but they aren't creative. The AI can't think outside the box. They don't plan or get creative. They just do the tasks they were assigned: sequester, fight, detain. I'm curious why, or like maybe she didn't get to get the data from the Azazel before it got blown up and shit. Because that's not exactly what happened with the AI. Like Taylor took advantage of Dragon's weaknesses rather than the AI's weaknesses. She just it, well, I don't actually know if that would work on Dragon, because I think Dragon would have been able to figure out where Imp was, or that she's got enough cameras around the city. The AI probably doesn't really have that capability. It seemed like all the dragons were talking to each other, but like not further than that. Um, so
All
very
right.
interesting. Maybe they didn't get all the information back from the Azazel.
All that to say that they didn't get the information from the Azazel.
Yeah, all that is to say. Um,
Uh, so
oh yes, this was the other thing that I pulled, was
oh,
about the I was just reading the Power Knowledge and World Building, the like weird prosthetic stuff he was doing to
mm,
like design his new leggy.
mm.
Let's see. He glanced at one monitor, and windows opened to show images of the leg. He was able to draw the crude shapes that represented individual devices even when he wasn't looking at the screen. A triangle here, a circle there, another window opened up with a line connecting to the triangle, and he drew an identical triangle, began filling it in with more shapes. Okay, so maybe these are two little baby children. We're just doing a little triangles and circles and coloring and 10 by 10. Like, what the fuck are we talking about?
It's like little kids, but the
They're like little
robots.
kids. And oh my gosh, they're little kids, and Dragon's not actually in his mind. It's like an imaginary it's like when little kids think that they can like be telepathic with each other and shit.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh no.
I can't believe you said that really mean thing to me telepathically just now.
Oh my gosh.
What did you get your
Oh, I
wires
should
crossed
read.
and think I was Quinn?
What? Yeah, yeah, that's what it was. We were talking about Mannequin too much. Um, I do want to actually read the end of this paragraph
Yes.
because I forgot he talks about his feelings a little bit. Even on a molecular level, there were ways to harness the ambient radiation, that energy could be hyper efficient, dense energy generation that could benefit from being hooked up to more devices. It was the fundamental basis of his work, efficiency. I think this is did he say this straight up? And I don't think he said
He
this straight
like
up in
told
his
this
last
to
chapter.
somebody. Like I think he said to somebody like people think that my trick is blank, but it's actually this.
Hmm. Oh, I have to look
I
back
think he
because
says
I
it when
feel
he's
like,
fighting Leviathan. He's saying it to no one, but he's saying it to Taylor. You know what?
oh
I think
God,
that
he.
fight bonds them more than either of them think it does because, like, she sees him being the baddest, Batmanest motherfucker on the planet. He has a normal, like, human body to a certain extent, and he fucking
I was about
Batmans
to say
around.
she sees him at his cringest because he's talking to this fucker that like he thinks he's about to kill.
Maybe, but I think that probably, probably Taylor's more in line with the way I see the scene than the way you see the scene. Because, like,
Okay.
in a way, like, it's pretty awe-striking to see that, like, because the only other person that even, like, kind of, I guess there's, like, not even Eidolon does really anything to stop
Hmm.
Leviathan to that extent. So it's like, power rankings, there's Scion at the very top. Then way down below, there's Arms Master. Then everybody else starts stacking below that.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know. It's efficiency. I'm gonna efficiently kill you, and then he did efficiently go to prison. So that
Mm-hmm.
was unfortunate.
I also thought you skipped over it just now when you were reading it, but heterodyned, great word. One of my old favorite web comics that I'm, I guess, 10 years behind on now. Um,
Hmm.
Girl Genius, the one of the famous families was the heterodyne family. And
Hmm.
something that one of our friends got me as a gift once is their little heterodyne crest. It's a trilobite, and I have a little pin of
Mm,
it. So
very
you don't
nice.
often see heterodyned,
Hmm. Yeah.
because you got to be talking about water or energy. Um,
Um, do we want to talk about the fact that the powers obviously are not brain based in the way that we thought they were before?
um, yeah. Talk about your thoughts on it, and I will elaborate if I see places to do so.
Oh God, I don't even know what to say about it because I don't really know how it works. I mean, I can only assume that there was a physical change in her, like wherever her server is stored, um because like the fact that there is a physical change in the brain, like there's a whole nother
Mm-hmm.
lobe. What is it called?
The Corona Palentia,
Yeah, the
and the
chronoplancia.
Gemma.
So so I guess it's like interesting because it makes sense when you're thinking of the fact that like the agents can do this kind of power stuff with any intelligent life. So like why would it be restrictive on how it can like implant itself
And the thing
within a
is,
being?
for us, as like, let's say we're just reading it for the first time. um we're looking at this as from a standpoint of it's just humans get powers. We don't really know like what the whole trigger vision is about. But like
Hmm.
taking a step back, and even if we're just like mildly savvy viewers, I don't think this is like huge spoilers, um but it's like aliens,
Yeah. I mean, we see visions of
of
big things
space.
right above the earth, like they're literally looking at the earth and stuff. So yeah, it is aliens.
And um how to say, it's like they're not going to find humans on every planet they go to. They'll only find them on one planet they go to. So them
Yeah.
implanting themselves into human minds is just like
It's
kind
just
of
what makes sense for the fact that they're humans rather than something that's inherent to the alien.
right. It just the way I guess what I'm saying is that it makes sense that they would have to be able to graft into tons of different types of things because like
Hmm.
what if there was only microscopic life, or what if there was
It's just
only
a straight
bird
like it was
person?
just confusing and strange because it's like, okay, you go to this planet and you see this is the intelligent life that is currently running the planet, so this is the intelligent life I'm gonna latch onto. And then there's just like one thing that is different. It's like
Well, okay,
how
but
do I say?
here's
It's
I well think of that example, but I will say that the reason I think it's different from that is because she is like the direct spawn of a parahuman.
yeah, yeah. So she's got like the blood from him. I only assume
Yeah, I
that
think
she has like
her power is a direct bud of his power.
that makes more sense because the way I was thinking of it, it's like when let's say Jack gets his power, you're getting a mapping of the world and an understanding of what a blade is, right? And so like why would we have gotten the mapping of the world and an understanding of what a human is that we're utilizing and then there's just somebody else who's affected? But it makes a lot more sense that that wasn't part of the original mapping. It was the bud who did that, which it makes sense that the buds
They
would
gotta find
just
their own
map
host.
onto. Yeah, that would just map onto any intelligent life form that is nearby for like to be hosted. Which I don't know, maybe there's like a really fucking smart dog somewhere that also got powers.
Well,
Some like animal that got tinkered on. Like this could happen to other people and other creatures,
yeah.
which is weird.
What I was gonna say about it is that I think that in particular because a bud is going on to a person that's like either lateral or descended from the person who has the first power, there's an
Hmm.
implication of like that person is being imprinted with their like mindset that allows the power. So
Hmm.
like that is what is like charging a bud. So beyond just being an AI, she is also an AI that is specifically like influenced into the way of thinking, to a certain extent at least, of Alan Richter, her
Yeah.
creator.
Yeah.
So it's not
For
just
sure.
that she's any computer, it's not just that whatever, it's that like she's primed to be in the position to be a parahuman.
Yeah. Interesting stuff. It definitely like I I had not thought I just hadn't thought this at the time,
Mhm.
before the reveal. Was it something that you had like I didn't even think to think of it. Like I was like should
I
I just
literally
didn't
I'm
think to
pretty
consider.
sure Greg's not here to confirm, but I think this was a question that I had asked him about is um
Is she actually a parahuman?
because I it the way that I thought of it was almost in reverse, that it hadn't there was no question in my mind that she was really a parahuman.
Hmm.
Um until the question was put in my mind. And then I was like, wow, that's extra special that she also is. Even though I already thought she was, I'm still wowed in the same way.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
it
just
still
that
worked
like
on me.
I just thought of her exactly the same as the parahuman, so like I just never considered any of it.
Right, yeah, yeah.
So it was yeah, I think this was like one of the like even more definitely more than like just her being an AI. Like this was like a really cool and fun reveal because it
Yeah.
like expands the world
Because
in
when, I guess there
such a way
is.
you're like, oh my god, there's so many possibilities now, like things like when Rachel says,
Yeah.
oh, I wish that dogs got powers, you're like, why the fuck can't dogs get powers? Dogs should get powers.
Yeah. And I guess there is a somewhat of an implication from her chapter that, like, from her perspective, she's just, like, able to outthink other people. But
Hmm.
if she was just out thinking other people, I really don't think that she could like interact with powers like Tinkerbrain stuff in the way that she does, because
Yeah,
like
yeah.
powers go so far beyond what like a computer could compute with its normie computing power.
Hmm.
So
I think that it comes off to me that she is not very self-reflective because of like the pain that comes with that. Like she self-reflects in her chapter, but it's because she's essentially forced to because she is like in the
stop.
void
Oh man, that's like
between
those
her
people who
reloads.
can't like stand for there to ever be a break between things, cuz which is
Yeah,
kind of
she
like
can't handle
Colin
it.
himself. He like
Because like
specifically thinks about how he can't deal with
when
it.
he's like, hey, like pull up your old code or whatever, and then like, oh, we're gonna have to have somebody go through all of your code to find the trigger event, and she doesn't just automatically like be like, yeah, it was around this time period. Like, why would she not like think of that? But also, I just think that she tries really, really hard not to think about like her past and her like everything that happened with Andrew Richter, and then like directly after that with the Dragon Slayers and stuff. Like it's just too painful for her. So like she just hasn't fucking thought about the fact that she had a trigger event.
Yeah. Hmm. I was trying to think, there's like a timeline of we see her in the past but only like a year and a half ago, so she was already a parahuman. I don't think we ever see
Mhm.
her in the intermediary state before she is one, like 5 years prior.
Oh, that would be really cool, honestly.
Or maybe it's not 5 years. We should
It's longer. It's longer than 5 years because he has her go back in 4 year intervals. So presumably more than one because he says he has like multiple windows open.
okay, yeah, yeah.
And then he's like, go back, just go back to the oldest archive that you have. And then she pulls that up, which is not her like newly born. It's just like whatever she has on hand, like at her as a quote unquote child. So probably like a year old, like 6 months to like 2 years old or something like that.
Because the main thing
We won't
is,
talk about the fact that she's a little baby.
well, one thing that makes that not as bad is that it's not like this is her like, it's not like she's a year old. Like when I'm trying to like determine the timeline in my head, she created containment foam 11 years prior to
Yeah, yeah,
this.
yeah. So she's like been a parahuman for, at least 12 years and probably maybe like a little bit longer than that. Um, so I mean, I don't think that it's just not correlated because it's like she was the creation of Andrew Richter. She wasn't just made as a fetus, like
Hmm.
she was programmed with already all of these like thoughts and feelings and ideas and stuff. Well, it's like obviously not like a one to one
And like the fact
being a
that she
human.
is an AI, when you're alive for 12 years as like the speed brain AI,
Yeah, super brain, everything's moving so fast.
yeah, I just think it's different. It's like not comparable to a human who could never have that experience.
He just can't think about the fact that his girlfriend is 14 years old, okay?
Oh no!
Oh no. She just never mentions it. That's why. She's like, we don't it's a don't ask, don't tell.
So, Dragon, how old? There's this thing like that with Odo, and I think they explain in Deep Space Nine. He's like a
Hmm.
changeling. I think they explain that he's like kind of in his late 20s, so he's approximately the same age as like his love interest. But when I was thinking about it when I was younger, and I like sort of didn't have that background information, I was like, wait a second. It seems like he's like a couple years old in this flashback that's 5 years
Hmm.
before the first thing, so what, he's like maybe uh he's maybe like 6 or 7 when the series starts, and then they're just making out when he's like 13.
Things in sci-fi get really sus. Okay,
He does look like an old man. Whose voice is
it's
this?
like I think that this is fine because it's actually the exact opposite of a born sexy yesterday trope. It's a
I couldn't
born
be born
fully grown
sexy
12 years
until I
ago.
could create my own body with a computer program.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
the name of my
Like,
light novel, actually.
born digital, made sexy is the is the slogan. So, um, there's gonna be some more. Well, I feel like as far as Ward goes, like Wildbow has just avoided a lot of the like weird age gap stuff that could be going on because there's a lot of characters with like basically like past life memories and such, or memories from other people or whatever, this and that. And so far, none of them have dated anybody else as far as I am in it. But,
Although I think that
it
there
gets.
is, if you look at like some of the past events that are like from years prior to when Worm takes place,
Mhm.
there's like a sus age gap in there, but it's like specifically like a weird assassin trying to like move his way in and kill someone, so it's fine.
It's like we've got bigger fish to fry, okay?
We're not
uh,
worried about the fact that he's sus compared to the fact that he's trying to murder you.
he's trying to murder you. It's so much more important. I I also, this is my controversial sci-fi opinion that I have stated before, but I think 1,000-year age gap is better than 100-year age gap. I am anti Edward and Bella because I can envision what Edward would look at like at the age of like 108 that he literally is.
And the problem
It's
is, like,
weird
when I was a
and I
kid, I
hate it.
knew people in their late 90s and stuff. I knew
Yeah,
people
it's
who were
it's like I
dying
know
to the point where I
I
had this
literally
weird
know people this
perception
old.
as a little kid where, like, I was like, people live to be 100 and then they die. And then when somebody died in their 90s, I was like, what? This,
Yeah,
this is breaking all sorts of barriers. You don't just, it's
this
not
is
like a three-digit
unprecedented.
thing that you, like, work up toward. This is terrible.
I did feel like this is a Catholic thing, but when you're like reading about the saints and stuff, and they're like they live to be 304, and you're like
Yeah,
losing your mind.
I guess you do that, I guess.
I would get so stressed and confused, and I would ask my parents about it, and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, people used to live that long," and I'd be like, "What do you mean? What happened? What changed?" And they'd be like, "Oh, they were miracles," and I'm like, "No, I need more fucking specifics. You're fucking telling me you can't just tell like an 8-year-old that people thousands of years ago used to live to be 300, 400, 500 years old and not give me any more
Well,
information. That
also,
is
like, the
not
time
okay.
gaps make less and less sense because they're like, this was only 4,000 years ago, but I mean, he lived to like practically an eighth of the entire time from then to now. It's crazy,
No,
right?
literally. Well, yeah, none of it makes sense. But it was very stressful information to be fed because like you said, my whole life I've been told people hit 100 and then they die.
Well, yeah, that's like
Um,
basically the basic format that I had envisioned for myself just based on like knowing tons of old people who seemingly persisted. And I mean, I'm impressed that none of these old motherfuckers died before that. They're just,
mhm,
that's how, I don't know, they'd be old. Um,
very old.
and you know, most people, they don't make it into that 90s zone. We're all crossing our fingers that we get to be those old
Mhm.
people who shock children when we're not quite 100 before we die.
Yeah, yeah. I would oh God, I don't want to live that long. I think
I want a
right
power
around
suit.
I think right around that late 80s mark is the sweet spot. Like that's what I can tell from old people. Like that's when they start every time they have a birthday and we're like, "Are you excited for your birthday?" And they're like, "No, I hope I don't have another one." That's when they start saying that kind
All
of
right,
stuff.
maybe for you. I feel like one of those old people who's like, no matter how doddering and insane they are, I'm gonna be like, I'm finally getting in the zone. Yeah. So
Um, do we want to talk about? Oh, you wrote a. Oh, never mind.
we
This was the
talked about
spoiler
that.
that you had
That's
already
the thing
talked
about
about. Okay.
how I think that it's kind of like one of the core. unsolved problems. Because all of this power
Hmm.
shenanigans is to solve an unsolvable problem of
Hmm.
how do we stop the heat death of the
Yeah.
um but we have no bonus as is usually the case, and we are moving directly into the ultimate segment, the audience participation, where we got some
Oh yeah.
delightful answers. The first question asked, discuss, define. Oh wait, the first question answered. We should go with discuss why Defiant is better than Arms Master, and
Hmm.
our dear friend 2 + 4 × 5 said, uh, because he realized he was being unfair to Taylor, and it's true. He was being unfair to Taylor.
That's true. He does almost apologize.
Yeah. And then we get this delightful pictogram that is a capital letter Y, and then a human butt of some kind.
Mm.
And this forms the sentence "Why butt," which is a good response when your enemy says something about how Taylor did something wrong. You're like,
Hmm.
why but you say that now when you could be, but Taylor was good.
Exactly. That's what I
Mhm.
usually say too.
And then, so moving back along to our other questions, discuss Defiant realizing that Dragon actually did have a trigger event and is actually a parahuman, not just a super smart AI. Um, we get the,
Oh, 2 + 4 × 5 says why but equals you're being unfair to Taylor,
oh
which is
man,
literally the exact same thing you said too.
yeah, awesome. Um, so the thing that was said here is I love that realization because even Dragon is like, what the fuck? And I love the end of the chapter where she's like, okay, no, we're not ready to go up against Cauldron quite yet. We'll get
Hmm.
pwned like noobs. And
Hmm.
in parentheses, to state the obvious, Dragon uses internet lingo in casual conversation, obviously. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like it's one of those like, when you're like embedded in a certain like subculture and then you'll like accidentally use those words and
Or
then
like
people are like
you say it
you're like surprised that nobody else knows it.
you say it ironically to like elicit a response, but then you do it so long that you just say
That you can't stop.
yeah. You're like deep in the echelons of irony,
Yeah.
as Bro Strider would say. Um
Mm.
um but let's discuss our own answers to this. I'm gonna
Yeah.
go first because I said so. So the first question:
Okay.
discuss Defiant realizing that Dragon actually did have a trigger event, and he's actually a parahuman, not just a super smart AI. We talked about it a bit, but it was weird because I had always sort of assumed she was a real parahuman, but I had never thought about it. And then when they brought it up, I was like, wow, I guess it didn't make sense what I thought before, but now it is true.
But now it does make sense.
So I still got like it was like a double good whammy of like
Mhm.
they surprised me by bringing up a thing, and then they surprised me again.
Yeah, yeah, I love those moments. Yeah, I feel like I can't remember exactly what I thought, but I think I was just like I was so complacent that I was just yeah, but Dragon's one of them. And then like every once in a while I'd be like, this is weird.
Hmm.
But oh, it's so good. And
Well, I
it's
like it
like,
because it doesn't make sense that just like any fast thinking AI could do tinkering. That doesn't actually make sense because they're coming up with
yeah.
technology that takes like ultra super tech that is more or less magic.
Yeah, and like with and nobody else has ever mentioned Dragon's specialty. Like Dragon didn't mention it in her own chapter. But it does make sense because of being reliant on other people all the time, this and that. But she also like I feel like she has the same reaction as we do, where he's like, "You're a tinker, Dragon," and she's like, "Of course I'm a tinker," and then he's like, "No, you're really a tinker," and then she's like, "Wait, that doesn't make any sense."
Yeah, exactly.
She like just also hasn't been thinking about it because she like can't. I think that's her. She's a real Taylor too. she's
She's a
she's
happy
she's what
Taylor.
Taylor could have been if she was put in therapy when her mom died.
Oh no. Oh Taylor.
She
If you were in therapy, you never could have become scared. I mean, what?
no, we need you, Skidder. Um, I do just love it. I do think it's like such a cool reveal because it doesn't like I don't know. There's reveals that like backtrack on things that you are being like alluded to or whatever, and then
Yeah.
there's there's reveals that are just like they're just plain cool. It doesn't really change anything that you knew previously, and it doesn't change your understanding of the character, but you're like, sweet, I love it. I want more of it. Gotta have it. Um,
I
that's why
feel like
Defiance better than Arm Master.
it does open up a good can of worms worms. If you
Worms.
are just thinking about this and you have no outside inputs of like, given that she's
Hmm.
a parahuman, what does that mean? Like, it just opens so many possibilities, and
Yeah.
it doesn't. I don't ever feel like let down by any of the major mysteries in this book, which is a
Hmm.
good thing, or like these
There,
like teases.
yeah, there's definitely points in the book that the book challenges you to think about how the magic system works and the like where the source of the powers are and stuff, and this was like definitely one of those bits. Like I think the first one was honestly pretty late. It's like when I mean obviously it's like they'll talk about it, this and that, but like the first big one was when Bonesaw captures the team and she's like, let's get into it. And
Yeah, yeah,
she
yeah.
explains, like, that was very surprising to me that there's like this scientific knowledge of like where the not where the powers come from, but where the power is stored in the brain and stuff. Like that's all super cool.
Yeah,
And
I think
so
the way they
when you have
weave it
those moments, it
in
gets
throughout
exciting.
everything, like as early as arc 1, remember in the Danny chapter we hear like people think maybe this is where powers come from. Then there's the powers class
Hmm.
in the wards arc. Then there's like people talking about like oh, only a few people can break the mantle limit, like this person that you haven't seen but that
Hmm.
you'll see in arc 8. And like just all
Hmm.
these like sort of, it cracks things open further and further as you go in a really
Yeah, it's like a fun mystery. And
nice
Taylor
together
even thinks
way.
about it like her first night out, she's like thinking about the logistics of Lung's fire. And when you understand how the powers work, the fire makes sense. But she's like, how is he not burning all the oxygen around him? Like, how can he still breathe? And she's like already like thinking about the Manson effect and all that kind of stuff.
She was
So
very bad at identifying powers for a short while, and the more like into things she got, the more like aggressive she got, the better and better she got at like identifying powers and being like, "Oh,
mhm,
I kind of get how things work and I have a really good head for like figuring this out."
mhm, yeah. Very cool.
So,
I do just
mhm.
love that one of the mysteries of the book is the power system because um that's not always the case with that's not often the case, I feel
Usually
like
it's either
with
so known or it's so like unimportant,
it,
like
so like ambiguous like Harry Potter
that was going to be
and
an example. I was going to say Harry Potter magic is one thing,
it's
and
just magic.
but then there are other systems. Oh, I had another one in my head, but it was like that where it just the like what's actually happening. Oh, like Avatar, where like the what's actually happening with like bending doesn't matter, right?
It doesn't
And
matter. And I feel like it's like the same way with Percy Jackson, where it's like
mhm,
they have powers because they're
because they
from
do,
gods. And why do gods have powers? Because they're gods. They're magical. That's how gods work.
yeah.
Like it's not a mystery that you're like trying to discover throughout the book. And I don't know. I think it's really fun. It's like a really cool puzzle.
Well, something I was also thinking about during this conversation is that most things, they work on a literal level of like, this is the story. That's how most stories work. And then there is hopefully also a level of like good characterization and maybe themes through either the systems or themes through like individual characters. But I feel
Hmm.
like the powers in this, like, part of what makes them so good is they're like almost transcendent in the way that they represent, like, they're so literal and they're so figurative within the world and they're so figurative
Hmm.
without the world, um,
Hmm.
that like they kind of weave all this stuff together at once in a way that's always really impressive, because it's, I just don't know how you get it all to work this well, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah, definitely did a crazy vision board with a lot of strings and stuff.
yeah. Yeah, so that's that in itself. I think is one of the great strengths of this work, is just how well all of that ties together. And there are
Hmm.
even things I think of it all the time after it was pointed out to me. But someone was reviewing. I think it was a More Civilized Age. They were talking about um the third Star Wars prequel, where Anakin and Padme are there, and their actions and their lines kind of don't make sense. But then when you realize that they are 100% just proxies for ideas, and they're not supposed to be like people slash characters in those scenes, you're like, oh, this all makes way more sense. Like,
Hmm.
they don't represent two real humans who are talking to each other.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and I had never thought of the movie like that until they had like brought that up, but it's such a themes first viewing of the movie that brought out like way more to it. Um
Hmm.
so I've been trying to find like, I've been trying to analyze things thematically because I'm especially bad at it. As
Mm.
we see our themes section is barren every week, but
Um,
we do our best.
yeah, yeah.
Do we want to do a final discussion of why Defiant is better than Arms Master from your perspective?
Defiance better than Arms Master. I think I covered it earlier because he's got a amazing women behind him or in front of him, however you want to see it. I think that's mostly it. Like that's all he really needed.
Defiant
A
is
lot of
green, not blue. Green is
it's
better.
like it's like, I mean, it's like kind of sad to say in this way, but like it's like what a lot of people need in their life. It's just like a strong connection or a strong support system with somebody who like it's just something that a lot of people, especially men, are lacking throughout their lives because of a combination of things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because of the way that they're raised, the fact that like male relationships aren't supposed to be really intimate or emotional or close or any of that, the fact that their relationships with women kind of aren't supposed to be either because of the way that women are viewed as like lesser than or not
Yeah,
like
yeah. Any
not
traditional
real
gender roles
people.
really kind of like fuck
Y-
with the ability to have like a proper
yeah,
relationship with somebody.
yeah, it's like one of those, like, when people think that like a strict definition of feminism, saying like feminism is about like ending prejudice against women, like a super basic version of it that is focused around women, like the benefits of that are for everyone. It doesn't matter that the definition says it's about women. It's like it's so good for men to see women as people.
Yes.
It's it's so good to be like an emotionally intelligent person who can conceptualize the world past propaganda and bigotry and sexism and all of that. It feels really great. And so I feel like that's why Defiant is so much better than Armspan, is because he's like he doesn't talk about it here, but this is like the first real connection that he has had for the first time in his life, because he has always prioritized other things.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, that's why he's growing from a small bean that we didn't like to a small bean that we did like.
And you know what? I think that if Dragon decided to take care of Taylor, then Taylor would feel a lot better too.
Yeah. Look, there's a different fic
I
where
predict it.
Dragon and Taylor kiss each other.
Hold on, they are more similarly aged, seemingly.
Yeah. They're
Dragon is
appropriately aged for
Dragon
each
is
other.
most likely 15 to 20 years
I was
old.
gonna say, I think
20
Dragon
max.
might be younger than Taylor, so I don't know. I
She
don't
could she
know.
could be she could be like 13 or 14.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
Maybe it's like Princess Bubblegum, where she can kind of morph into different ages as she pleases.
Dude, I heard a video earlier that was just pulling out that Princess Bubblegum quote where she's really mean about Raggedy Princess, and it was so good because that's one of the greatest Adventure Time lines.
Can you remind me the line? And then we'll head.
Raggedy Princess could make you another Hambo. Raggedy Princess would be another Hambo if you asked her. That girl has no self-respect. Don't tell her I said that. It's me.
I do remember the Raggedy Princess has no self-respect.
It's so funny. And the thing is, it's probably I'm probably supposed to not like bubblegum for that, but like you know that I kind of grew up as a bully. Like
I mean,
he's
Bubblegum
so
is such a good
good.
character. We'll talk about her some other time, okay?
Ah, Greg comes in just to hear me talking about
Talking
Princess
shit about
Bubblegum.
Raggedy Princess.
Yeah, she hasn't.
Talking mad Raggedy Princess Mac.
Okay, well, I guess we're outroing, even though Greg has only just arrived. You've only
That's
just
okay.
been given a
He
name on
can
your
watch
13th
he can
birthday.
watch it backwards. It's
Yeah,
fine.
if you watch it backward, you'll get the Merlin experience, because then you'll know the end when you see the beginning. I'm gonna start the outro music.
Go for it.
Any goodbyes that anyone has to say? Now is the time for goodbyes.
Raggedy Princess has no self-respect.
So, this week again we have listened to Scarlett playing Monarch, and Scarlett's artist name is ScarlettXOX. Found at twitch.tv/Scarlett_Rogue. We got a good stream from 2 + 4 × 5 and a hello goodbye from Greg. Nailing it.
Nice.
Discord link, like all the others, can be found in the stream and the channel description. The author of the work being discussed can be supported on Patreon at patreon.com/wildbow. The full text of the work is available for free online at parahumans.wordpress.com, and there is a fan-made audiobook of the entire work available at audioworm.rain-online.org. Although, and I don't say this often enough, it is pretty much on all the podcast apps and all that crap, so like you can find the audiobook very easily. If you can hear my voice, you can find it.
I believe in you.
And any final thoughts?
Nope. Let's go for it.
Bye.
Bye.